Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. There is something reaching, crawling, in a terror of movement, tremoring in the air, reaching blindly towards its next victim that it will ensnare. I'm just talking about my grapevine that came back after winter. I never have a serious one.
Hello, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rebecca.
Rebecca,
Yes.
do you recall last week when I told you a story of a historical fire that occurred around the time that the episodes we were discussing had aired, and it was kind of in poor taste?
Yeah, I do
Well,
remember that.
this week we're covering episodes that originally aired from Monday, January 23rd through Friday, January 27th, 1967. On the evening of Friday the 27th, the crew of the Apollo 1 was conducting tests to prepare for a projected launch date of February 21st. The crew members were in the command module for a launch simulation, testing the ship's internal systems without relying on power from ground operations. So the module was situated on top of the rocket meant to propel them to space, but that rocket did not have any fuel at the time. However, the cabin was filled with pressurized oxygen and contained many flammable materials. So that combined with the high oxygen environment created very fire prone conditions. A damaged wire caused a spark that ignited, and the fire spread quickly. Because the hatch of the module was difficult to open and had multiple steps, the crew was not able to escape, and all three died from asphyxiation as a result of the fire. RIP to Virgil Gus Griffin, Edward White II, and Roger Chaffee. Information courtesy of Wikipedia. Anyhow, speaking of fires and Rogers, episode 151. Now, that is just to say, do you also recall how I mentioned that I wonder what Diana Malay thought of the headlines when that big fire happened in Chicago, right as she was up to big fire business on TV? And now here she is the next week, still up to fire business on the TV, and the astronauts catch fire.
Well, so here's a question for you, a quandary. What if you're a witch, but also an actor, but don't know it, and then you do things because you're playing a witch? That would be a fun novel. Never mind, don't tell these people that. I'm a n I'm gonna add it to the long list of goofy ass novels
Books that you will never read.
ever write.
Yes.
Exactly, so but yeah, that would be cool. I would watch or read that.
Speaking of things we're going to write, on my list of fan fiction I may someday write, given the crossover in timelines and how we have talked several times on this podcast about my grudging love for Mad Men. I think a Dark Shadows Mad Men crossover would be fun.
That's very fun. I'll probably just write, like
Roger goes to New York City to hire Dawn to do advertising for fish business, but instead they get down to other business.
Yeah, I would read that. Definitely read that.
We have the 2 bonus episodes to record on Monday,
Yeah,
so
we do.
anything else we had to talk about can go there. So, episode 151, Victoria Winters reminds us that last night was weird. Also, today will be weird.
Liz comes in to David's room to wake him because he's sleeping late, and he says he was up for a long time last night, and she seems not surprised with his feelings about the painting being destroyed. And he says, yes, he cried and cried, but then his mother came to visit him. And Liz is like, "What? No, that is not possible." And he says, "No, she was here and I can prove it. Here's her handkerchief." Liz is shocked.
Yeah, she's pissed and a little scared, it
Yeah,
looks like,
yeah.
before the opening credits. Liz asks David where he got the handkerchief, and he repeats that Laura gave it to him last night. She wants details like what time, how long had you been in your room? And Liz asks, well, was she scary like in your other dreams? Because she's still thinking this was maybe a dream and he had just stolen the handkerchief or something. But David tells her, no, she wasn't scary. This was a good dream, like the dreams I used to have about her before she came back. Liz doesn't like that, so she tries to change the subject and urges him to get ready
Yeah.
for the day.
She's like, "Okay, I'm glad mother was nice. Now go get dressed and take a shower." Basically tries to change the subject and not talk about Laura anymore.
David is in an oddly jovial, jokey mood, which he credits to his mother and tells Liz that she has his mommy to thank for that. And Liz menacingly says, that's exactly what I intend to do. And I cackled because I like it when Liz is scary.
I do like Scary Liz. She's the best.
David mentions that Mother had mentioned that the two of them would be going away together all alone soon. Liz is kind of like, oh, really? But asks him, well, is that what you want to happen? And he said, well, I don't really know.
Maybe she
Maybe.
hypnotizes me some more.
Where then he runs
Yeah.
away and Liz makes a panicked face. Later in the kitchen, Liz is telling Roger that she simply won't have it.
Over my dead body,
Yeah.
she's not taking that child.
And
And
Roger does not care.
no, he's like, "Stop fussing. It's too early for all that." And he says that everything will be better when he's off with his mother. And then he's like, "I'll recall him fondly from a distance because he's a wonderful father." We laughed so hard at that. He's just being snotty and snide about the whole thing, and Liz is like, "Stop being clever, just not having it," like you said, she's not giving in, and Roger is kinda like, "Well, it's really not up to you, it's up to his mother and I," and
She threatens to kick him out if he lets Laura take David. And he tries to argue back, like, well, if you kick me out, then David would go too. And she's like, well, if Laura takes him, he already gone and you homeless. So,
yeah.
however, Roger does get Liz to agree that, well, if David really wants to go with Laura, and if Liz thinks it's safe or whatever, then she will let him go. At this point, Carolyn enters and does the usual flirting with Roger before he heads out. Carolyn starts to talk shit about Laura, and Liz scolds her for disrespecting her elders. Carolyn explains that Burke broke up with her so he could get with Laura, and now Liz is interested and wants all the
Yeah.
details. Carolyn admits that Liz was right about Burke all along, and even while she's in a witch fight with Laura, she still is taking up for her and like, don't talk about your aunt like that, you know. But Carolyn begins to question why Laura is suddenly so into the idea of having David when she hasn't made any effort to do so in years. And she's planting seeds in Liz's mind that Laura is in cahoots with Burke regarding the manslaughter and
Yeah.
only taking David to get back at. the Collins family or something.
Yeah, she's trying to stir that shit and say that Laura may have been plotting with Burke the whole time, and
Well, it works because
yeah.
Liz decides it's time for Bird Lady to
Yeah,
fly
she
on home to Phoenix.
yeah, she stands up all dramatic and is like yeah, Carolyn is loving, Liz's reaction and is all, "Yes, yes, let the hate flow through you, Star Wars," something, but, uh
I don't
yeah,
get
I
the
know, you
reference.
Matthew has never watched Star Wars as a point of pride, but, or have you watched any of them?
Nope.
Your husband hasn't made you watch them? Husbands like to make you watch
I
them.
don't think he cares all that much about it
I
either.
didn't think you did,
But
but
no, I've never seen any of
well,
them. And
anyway,
it
she's
wasn't on purpose. Like,
oh,
I
yeah.
just never watched them as a child, and by the time I was in my 20s and all the newer ones were coming out, at that point, it kind of became a like, "Well, I'm stubbornly never going to see them, and also I don't care that much."
I liked the first, like, ones when I was a kid, but I don't like any of the new stuff, and I'm
I'm not
not a Star Wars person.
real big on
Oh,
space.
I like space.
Like,
I'm
there
into
are
sci-fi,
a
but
few things that I like. I like the Alien franchise, and I enjoyed the books and the television program The Expanse, and I enjoyed Star Trek when I was a child, but I haven't watched it since the mid-1990s.
yeah, that and Babylon 5 are, like, my favorite sci-fis, but I like the Stargate movies. I didn't like the TV show.
Never saw 'em.
I never watched the Battlestar Galacticas that everybody
Oh, I did
loves.
like that. Not as much as Trey did,
I
but
love Star Trek and Doctor Who. Anyway, back to all this business. Carolyn is just pleased as punch that she has gotten the reaction she wanted. Liz stands up and is just like, Laura's gotta go. She's done.
up in David's room, he's playing with what I think are chess pieces, but could just be toys.
It,
They're too
I
big and clunky.
Yeah, they looked like he just had like model toys that he was playing on his chess set,
Well,
but he weirdly hides it under his pillow.
there, yes, that's what I was getting at, but I was trying to determine what they were because they might have been oversized chess pieces because there were at least two guys on horses.
Yeah,
And then
maybe.
there were just some, like, knight-looking dudes just standing that could have been pawns. So I but at any rate, he's just playing with whatever toy this is, and someone knocks on the door, and he rushes to hide it, and my first thought was like he's hiding porn. But then it occurred to me that it's like, no, he's supposed to be doing schoolwork and not
Oh.
playing. So he's hiding the evidence that he was
I gotcha.
slacking off, not
That whack.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Roger has come to chat about how pleased he is that David visited with Laura last night. He's also come to try and subtly manipulate David into going away with Laura. But you know Roger isn't good at subtle.
No, he's very scummy and transparent in this whole bit, and it's gross.
So he's telling David how great it would be if he were to go away with Laura. And doesn't that sound great? Don't you want to do that?
And since you do want to do that, why don't you mention how much you want to do that to Liz?
Yeah. A little later,
Get her
David.
off my back.
A little later, David is back to playing with the maybe chess pieces again. Not like playing chess or anything. He's just making the guys fight like big clunky army men's or something.
Yeah.
And again, he rushes to hide them when someone else knocks at the door. This time, Carolyn has come to call, and it was kind of sad because David remarks on how many visitors he's getting today. Like, gee, everybody's coming to talk to me today. It's unusual for me to speak to two of the people that live in the same house with me and are my family on the same day.
Yeah, well, Carolyn and Roger are cut from the same cloth and like uncle and weird flirty, incestuous niece, she has come to manipulate David and is trying to sway him in the opposite direction that his mother isn't all she's cracked up to be.
Carolyn has come in and he pretends to have been studying, and Carolyn calls him out on it and points out an errant toy sticking out from under the pillow. And they laugh about it, and she agrees to keep his secrets. So they're being friendly for a moment, which is rare. She brings up the painting and wonders why he isn't more upset about it. She's confused since he was real pissed before, but now seems fine. Also, she warns him not to get too attached to Laura because she might have to leave. David insists that, well, if she left, she would take me with her. Carolyn says that Roger might not allow that, and she's trying to manipulate him into wanting to stay at Collinwood and is like, "Don't you love us? We love you."
Yeah.
Carolyn hates this kid and has said so many times, and this is clearly just part of
Yeah,
her
she
revenge on Laura campaign.
yeah, she's constantly calling him a creep and not a fan.
Poor creepy little
Poor
David.
creepy David. I love David. Everybody, he can be annoying because he's a kid and
Carolyn leaves, telling him she only wants what's best for him, certainly not just revenge on his mom for stealing her man.
yeah.
And David's like, cool, and goes back to killing his little chess man.
I'll die, die.
In the drawing room, Roger is doing a crossword puzzle, and Carolyn comes in to try to do word play rather than just saying what she wants to say. But it comes out like cheesy porno dialogue, like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Plumber, my pipes have a real bad clog," or some such. And she's on the verge of sitting in his lap, and they're about to cue up the porno jazz in the background, but he eventually sorts out that she wants to talk about Laura and Burke instead of fucking her uncle. So he tells her, he explains to Carolyn that Laura has to stay on his good side until after the divorce, at least, if she wants custody of David. And
But she's come to manipulate the manipulator and spins it to be like, well, what about after the divorce? She'll have David and Burke will have her. And he says he will handle it, kitten. Just you watch. And she's like, oh, I'll be watching, dear uncle. It was very gross.
bow chicka bow wow, it gets a bit more inappropriately sexy before the end credits. Episode 152, Victoria Winters, reminds us that David has flip flopped again about being scared of Mother, and Liz is pissed about it. Liz is pacing the drawing room before Vicky comes in, and Liz has summoned her to scold her for allowing Laura to get in to visit David. Vicky's kind of like, well, I mean, sorry, I guess. I didn't see her, but even if I had, remember, I'm just the help and I can't really stop her from seeing her son.
Yeah. And
To which Liz is like, I see your point, but actually, yes, you can because I'm telling you to right now.
yeah, she's demanding it.
She insists that David isn't to see his mother anymore. Opening credits.
In the murder shack, fire emporium, whatever, Laura is fire gazing and Frank's at the door. He has come to ask her some things in regards to the divorce. He asks who will be representing her, and she hasn't really thought much about it. And he says, well, you ought to. She would rather he just handle it all and tie it up quickly.
He tries to explain, I can't represent
Yeah.
both parties in a divorce.
Right. Yeah.
That is a conflict of interest. And she's
Surely you'll want a settlement of some kind. And she's like, no, all I want is David. And he's like, well, what about David's inheritance? She's like, I'll sign whatever I need to, just get this done. And he's like, okay. And
Well, he kinda tells her, "You know, that's stupid, lady, but, you could get lots of money out of this, and you should."
but I couldn't represent you doing it, yeah.
Well, he just tells her, "Fine, if that's what you want, I'll find somebody that you don't even have to talk to come to court for you, and I'll handle the rest," which I think is still unethical. He should have refused. On his way out, Frank brings up the burnt body in Phoenix. And Laura's just like, "Yeah, isn't that weird? Don't know a single thing about it." And he brings up that Phoenix has started to suspect murder and that she might have to go back to be questioned. And she says, "Oh, sure, but after I get David." And
As he starts to leave, she stops him to hypnotize him with her fire magic into getting David as soon as possible for her, and he's like, "Yeah, okay," and he leaves. She goes back to fire gazing,
but
but
she's interrupted again by Vicky knocking at the door. Again with the fun parallel scenes.
yeah, it's true.
Uh, Everybody is also coming to visit Laura today. Laura tries to make small talk about Frank, like, "Is that your boyfriend, Vicky?" Vicky's kinda like, No, not really."
I don't wanna talk about boys with you, I'm here to talk about your child. She asks, "Well, why have you come then, if you don't wanna talk about boys?" And she says it's about David and that Liz is very upset that Laura came to visit David in the night, and Laura's kinda like, "Well, I mean, I'm his mother. Can't I go see my kid?" And she says that Liz has told her to keep her away from David, and Laura's like, "Well, are you going to?"
Yeah, Laura's kinda like, "But I thought we
But
were friends. Don't
yeah.
you like me, Vicky?" And this works on Vicky, and she starts to backpedal like, "No, I didn't say that, but I have this weird feeling and I can't explain it." And Laura's like, "Well, try."
Yeah, Vicky's like, she can't reconcile the fire at Sam's and the painting of or the painting David into it by itself or all of these
She
different things,
goes
and
through the whole
yeah.
laundry list of weird shit that's happened since Laura came to town, and
And Laura tries to logic her way out of it, but Vicky says, "Well, yes, but the fact is that I've been ordered to keep you from David and
well, she
that I
does kind of buy Laura's bullshit at first. She's like, "Okay, well, I guess maybe I am overreacting, but even if I do like you and am on your side,
I've been ordered to
my
keep David
boss
from
has
you."
told me this and I have to comply. And if we're friends, then you should help me because you don't want to jeopardize my job."
Well, yeah, and she has asked her to help by staying away, and Vicky says that if things get ugly between Laura and Liz, David will be the one to suffer. Laura says that she thought of all people, Vicky would be on her side because she's an orphan and didn't have a mother. And Vicky's like, "Well, yeah, but he has a family like that he lives with, and you were in the clink for her." So I mean, she's just kind of like, the situations are different, ma'am.
Well,
And Laura starts to talk shit on the Collinses and about how are they really all that much of a family, which fair, like she's
she's
like,
not wrong,
yeah,
but the Laura's up to something music is playing in the background. Laura's begging Vicky for her help, and
please let me see him a few more times. And Vicky says she can't go against Liz. And then Laura tries to guilt her and say that, well, I guess you're just choosing Liz over helping me and David. And Vicky freaks out because
as
of the
if
fire magic.
yeah, as if sensing Laura is trying to fire magic her into compliance,
Yeah, she's like,
Vicky flees,
yeah. Yeah, she flees the cottage, and Laura is standing
making
there
faces.
thinking about who to hypnotize next.
Turns out that Laura's bullshit worked because back in the main house,
Now Vicky has flipped and is telling Liz that she can't do what Liz asked her to do. And Liz is being very forceful here and saying no amount of argument will change your mind and you better do as you're told. Is that clear? And she asks again, is that clear? And Vicky kind of says yes meekly. And poor Vicky is the volleyball in the middle of this witch battle, just being compelled back and forth between these very powerful women.
Roger catches the tail end of this and compares Liz to Lucretia Borgia.
Uh,
And Frank also arrives to announce that he's spoken to Laura. Liz is trying to give Frank orders about the divorce, and Roger is trying to give him orders about the divorce.
and he's like, well,
And Frank is like,
what do you want me to do?
Liz, are you getting divorced? What?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's confused and doesn't know who to agree with, but instead he tells them about the body in Phoenix and that Laura may have to go back to Phoenix for the investigation. And Liz continues trying to be the boss of Roger's divorce, and he's annoyed by it. Liz says that the whole situation with the body in Phoenix needs to be resolved before they proceed with the divorce.
Roger does not like that and is arguing that, and they argue some more, and Frank is like, "Well, I've gotta go. What do you guys want me to do?" Like, he is caught in the middle of this sibling fight, and he doesn't wanna fuck with it. Liz says, "Oh, we'll let you know," but then Roger walks him out and immediately tells him privately to drop the divorce papers. Frank protests, but
Only
Roger
a
says,
little.
"Yeah, only a little." And Roger says, "Oh, well, he'll deal with the fallout." So Frank's like, "Oh, okay, fine. As long as it's not on me, friend."
I'll disobey the lady who signs my checks.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Frank's dumb. I don't like Frank.
After Frank is gone, Roger answers a phone call.
And he seems shocked.
It's either the police in Phoenix or someone who talked to the police in Phoenix, and they've called to tell Roger that the burnt up body in Phoenix has been positively identified as Laura Collins.
And then Liz is like, "Well, if Laura Collins is dead in Phoenix, who's that down in the cottage?"
End credits.
Episode 153, Victoria Winters tells us it's cold and windy with scattered chances of mystery and intrigue. Liz and Roger practice some synchronized staring out the window into the gusty night, and there's a knock at the door, which Roger correctly predicts to be Lieutenant Riley, who I don't remember meeting, or if it's a different actor, I don't know.
No, this is the third time we've seen him. You're
Okay.
having the same problem I had with Frank last time.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, he invites him in, and this man wants to show him about blood types and how Laura is Rh positive and it matches the body in Phoenix. And Roger is being belligerent already and is like, "So lots of people have the same blood types." And he says, "Well, but I also have dental records and they match as well and say that it is Laura. Laura Collins is dead in Phoenix." And Liz is like, "So Laura is the Laura that is here is an imposter?" And Roger doesn't want to believe any of this, and Lieutenant Riley is quick not to accuse Laura of being an imposter. He just wants to go talk to her.
Roger reluctantly agrees and calls Laura to announce that they're coming down.
He doesn't answer right away because she's busy fire gazing, but then she does.
Over at the Blue Whale, Frank and Vicky are having wine at dinner, and Frank tries to impress her with tales of having been to Paris.
Fancy Frenchman.
Vicky brings up that David and his mom are getting closer, and she has decided to be pleased about this, regardless of previous feelings.
Yeah, she's Team Laura right now, which maybe it's witch business, maybe it's Maybelline, who knows, but
Interestingly, because he just has to be contrary to whatever Vicky says,
yeah.
now Frank is suspicious of Laura since Vicky is on her side now.
Fuck Frank.
At the cottage, Roger asks Laura how it feels to be a dead woman, and she is shocked and then annoyed, and eventually Roger shuts up and lets Lieutenant Riley proceed. And he explains about the medical records and everything, and Laura again is just kind of like, "Well, I'm right here. Do I look dead to you?"
And Roger gets all puffed up and is like, "Okay, we're going to settle this." And he asks Laura personal questions that only Laura would know. What were we going to call David before he was born? And what was the address of our old house in Augusta? What did we call the dog? Which it was Dog because David called it Dog, and that was cute. But she answers all correctly,
And
and
then he
he
probably
snipes.
skinned it and
Oh no, I don't no. I don't wanna believe that little David of the damned corn
Well,
is.
remember Carolyn already told on him about drowning a cat or
Oh, yeah, that's
something.
true, he probably
He
did
is a
skin the
little
dog, he is it.
serial killer.
I forget I'm under David's thrall because he is also a bird person, has the bird blood or whatever. Uh
Anyway, Roger asks all these personal questions and she passes the test.
And he snipes at the cop like, "Well, this should prove it's her," and the cop is like, "I never said that I didn't believe that she was Laura, I just wanted to ask her some questions, and all of this was kind of unnecessary." So, he's asking about who could have been, does she have any more info? She just says just her maid that she made up, and Roger asks if that's all, and Riley says, "Well, would you submit to a physical?" Everyone's kind of shocked at this, but Laura agrees, and they make plans for tomorrow to prove Laura is Laura.
Laura doesn't agree. She looks resistant at first and is uncomfortable, but Roger agrees on her behalf, so
Ah,
she just
I
goes
missed
along with
that.
it. Roger asks Liz to see Riley back to the house so that he can talk to Laura privately. Roger accuses Laura of knowing more about the dead woman in Phoenix than she is letting on.
Yeah, he
And he
knows who's
tells her,
lying.
"Listen, I'll go along with whatever story you want to tell everybody else, but tell me the truth." And she makes no confessions, and he leaves disappointed. We cut over to Frank and Vicky driving home, and Vicky's asking more questions about Paris. And
So he rambles about his landlord's cats in Paris, but Vicky is making a ghost trance face and not listening. And he calls her name and breaks her trance a little. She's all, "I smell jasmine." And then she tells him to make a turn, and it's all spooky. And she says she just knows they're going where they're supposed to be going. She's clearly under some thrall.
and then gives him very specific ghost directions and is like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you're gonna take this right, and then not
Yeah.
the next road, but the road after that."
And Frank's
And
like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot she's crazy."
yeah, he asks where they're headed, and she says, "Oh, I don't know." In the drawing room, Roger and Liz are arguing some more. Liz says that everything with Laura is just too fucking weird, and Roger wants to argue but can't really. And back in the car,
Vicky's guiding Frank to her bird-scented mystery location, and Frank is like, "The fuck is this lady on about?" But he's humoring her, and she just says she knows they're supposed to be there, and she's supposed to find something. And she looks out and says, "What about that house?" And Frank is like, "But look next to the house. Vicky, you brought us to a graveyard, weirdo."
back in the drawing room, the sibling fight continues, but nothing new is really said. And Roger sends Liz to bed, which is fun because nobody's sent anybody to bed in
Yeah,
a
it
while.
reinforced your observation that there can be all this fighting and fussing, but when somebody sends a lady to bed, they must obey.
Yeah, she doesn't argue.
Yeah, back on Vicky's jasmine-scented Toucan Sam adventure.
She approaches a fog shrouded door and knocks, and she's waiting for someone to answer. And A few seconds later, Frank catches up and is like, "Why did you run away, crazy? Like, what the?" Because she had ditched him and ran out of the car into the graveyard, and he's just now catching up. Frank insists that nobody is in there in this abandoned graveyard late in the evening, and she should stop knocking. But Vicky insists that this is their destination. Frank tries to talk her out of it and has almost succeeded when the doorknob begins to turn and the door slowly opens and they peer inside. Spooky music. End credits.
Episode 154. Victoria Winters tells us she's ding dong ditching in a ghost trance.
An old man answers the door, looking confused at having visitors at this hour, but then he reaches out to touch Vicky, not creepily, just on the shoulder, to confirm that both she and Frank are alive, and they're both like, "The fuck?" But they agree, and he says there's often ghosts knocking on the door, but no one is ever there when he opens. He says the dead are his usual visitors. Opening credits.
Yes, he said has ghostly visitors that come to the door and then leave because they actually do ding dong ditch him and order.
Frank asks the old man to tell them where they are and that they'll leave. But the old man is like, "No, hang out, I'm so lonely."
Yeah.
He asks if they happen to have read the headstones on the way in, and they say no. And he's like, "Well, if you had, you would know that you are at the Stockbridge Family Cemetery." Vicky asks if they can come inside, and he agrees. Frank is clearly freaked out, but comes along for the ride anyway. And I love this creepy old caretaker so
He's
much.
great.
He's adorable. And the trio enters his dusty office piled with books, and Vicky and Frank are looking around, and she asks the caretaker if the books are the records of who's buried in the cemetery, and he says, "Why, yes," and goes on spookily and wordily. He knows all about the dead people and when they were born and when they died and how they died and their favorite colors and hobbies and favorite radio programs and all yeah, it's funny.
It is cute. And Frank's freaked out and is like, "Let's go." But Vicky isn't having it because she's made a new ghost friend. She's like, "This is great."
She's going on about smelling jasmine, and the creepy old caretaker is like, "What?" The smell is leading Vicky towards the crypt, but the caretaker doesn't want her to go in there. He says nobody ever gets to go in there. The caretaker doesn't want her to go in, but she begs, and he relents as long as she promises to be real quiet and not disturb the dead. Frank is being a dick because
Frank is
Frank
dick.
is a dick. The caretaker explains to Vicky about family naming conventions and causes of death, and they go over several headstones. Eventually, Vicky reads from a headstone, L. Murdoch Stockbridge, 1735 to 1767. Who could an L. Murdoch be?
I wonder.
The caretaker says several times, like, "Oh, they didn't care about first names, only the middle name and the last name, and that's why there's just this L." So it seems for a few seconds like a mystery that this is dead ass burnt up Laura in this grave. He goes on to tell them L. Murdoch Stockbridge died in a fire when a candle set the bed aflame, and the remains inside are mostly ashes. And at this point, Vicky becomes unable to breathe. The pleasant jasmine aroma has gone, and now it smells like a musty old crypt, and Vicky is freaked out.
But now Frank is into it.
And
And
he
he's like, wait,
repeats L.
what
Murdoch
was that
1,000,000
name?
times. He says it so much.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be there and can't breathe due to the mustiness. And Frank's not listening because he's making the connection to Laura's name.
He's just wandering around going, L. Murdoch, L. Murdoch, L. Murdoch.
Yeah.
And then the caretaker joins in and is like, L. Murdoch Stockbridge died by fire. L. Murdoch Stockbridge died by fire. And they're doing their weird little chorus. And Vicky tells Frank that, it was Josette Collins who directed us here. And the caretaker's like, I don't know any Josette Collins. They try to leave, but the caretaker is desperate for company and wants them to hang out.
Yeah,
They're
he's
like,
lonely looking after the bird people graveyard.
they're like, sorry, but thanks and bye.
Yeah.
In the drawing room at Collinwood, Roger is having a drink, and Mrs. Johnson comes in and asks if he needs anything.
She's come to squeeze some gossip out of him about the cops being there, but Roger deflects and says that it was nothing important. At that time, Laura comes in the house and says good evening to Mrs. Johnson, and Roger sends her away to make some strong coffee to have with his brandy and to offer to Laura, and also so he can ask Laura if she's come to tell him her secrets and has changed her mind.
Roger still wants in on whatever murder plot she was involved in, and he's mad
He's
that
like,
she
"Will you
won't
help
tell him
me with
what's
my
going on.
manslaughter? I'll help you with
He's
your
like,
murder."
remember, this is our whole
Yeah.
deal. We like covering up mysterious deaths together.
Yeah.
She pretends that she's mad that he would even consider that she might have killed someone. And he's like, bitch,
Yeah,
remember when I killed someone and you were in on it?
yeah.
He threatens her that Liz wants rid of her, and Laura has about had it with these mortals and starts
Yeah.
talking real big, like, oh, your sister wants to fuck with me? Well, you tell her that I said. Yeah. Roger taunts her like, oh, yeah, you'd never hurt anybody, little Miss Sister Threatener.
Yeah, they argue, and he's getting her all steamed up so she can make crazy fire murder faces, and
Mrs.
he's
Johnson is eavesdropping as Roger starts in on Laura about how come you're taken up with Burke Devlin, and are you planning on telling Burke Devlin that I did that manslaughter that you and me then covered up just to make sure Mrs. Johnson is in on all those details? And Mrs. Johnson clanks the tray on purpose so they know she's coming so she doesn't get caught walking in on that conversation. And she tries to play it real cool. And she's like, well, if y'all don't need anything else, I guess I'll go to bed. Good night. As soon as she leaves, they're both like, oh, yeah, she totally heard that. We're going to have to manslaughter her now.
right. On the porch, Vicky and Frank are standing at the front door, and they talk about the spookiness, and she says that it was Josette that led them there, and Frank thinks, well, it was definitely weird, but why would your ghost psychosis be leading us to Laura's ancestors so that we know they're Stockbridges? And Vicky and Frank mull it over and agree that it's all confusing, and Vicky just wants to figure it out.
Vicky offers Frank a drink and they go inside. Roger greets them and asks them if they want some brandy. Frank does, but Vicky does not. So she accepts the offer of some coffee from Laura and starts to question her about her origins. Vicky asks if she first came to Collinsport as a young woman, and Laura teases like, well,
Well,
aren't I still a young
yeah,
woman? And
it was good.
Vicky clarifies that she was just asking if her family was from Collinsport, and she pretends that David has some genealogy questions about her side of the family, and Laura just tells her, well, if he asks again, just tell him I come from one of the finest families in the area. And Roger is loudly telling Frank about the body in Phoenix being ID'd as Laura through medical records. And Roger thinks it's funny, but no one else assembled does.
No, Vicky just goes trance, says, Laura Murdoch Collins died by fire. End credits.
Episode 155.
Victoria Winters tells us that Laura is a lion ass bitch, and Mrs. Johnson is about to dish to Burke about it.
At the inn, Mrs. Johnson has arrived to give Burke the gossip, but she's real pleased about herself and her good eavesdropping. So she toys with Burke a bit and eventually tells Burke that Laura is a lying fraud before the opening credits. Burke asks for proof and is getting real shouty at Mrs. Johnson and calling her a liar. And
Eh,
she explains what she overheard and how Laura was only keeping Burke pacified, and he's gobsmacked, and Mrs. Johnson is amused, and like this is when he yells at her and calls her a
And
liar.
she just shuts it down. She's insulted and goes to gather her things, is just about to leave when he apologizes for losing his temper, and so she softens a little. And she says she feels sorry for him for being strung up on some girl or for being strung out on some girl. And she points out the logic that if Laura were to testify in a retrial, then she would go to jail. So why would she do that? He's like, well, I can't believe she'd betray me. And Mrs. Johnson is all, girl, you mean betray you again? Because of the manslaughtering and all that.
Yeah,
See,
she finally succeeds in talking him out of what's the lady word for dickmatized? Now Burke is mad at Laura. Over at the cottage, David has come to visit Laura and she's pleased to see him, but is making very sure that David is aware that these little visits must remain a secret. Being a little creep, David is enthusiastic about secrets, so he's into this. He admires a music box of Laura's, so she gifts it to him, but does say, "You might want to leave it here for now so nobody knows that you've been here." And he promises that he'll hide it and no one will see, so she foolishly agrees. They say their goodbyes after she reminds him another time not to tell anyone. Laura smiles to herself after David leaves. Over at the main house, Liz is looking dramatically out the drawing room windows to a flash of lightning and a crash of thunder. She confronts David as he enters and asks where he's been. He lies and says he's been out playing on the beach, and she's like, "You shouldn't be doing that. It's about to storm." He's clearly hiding something behind his back, which Liz demands to see, and he reluctantly shows her the music box, which he says he just randomly found on the beach. She, of course, recognizes the music box and asks David why he's lying. He won't budge and says, "Well, maybe my mom just lost it on the beach where I found it." They fight about Liz preventing him from seeing Laura. He wants to know why she's being so mean. So she calls him into the drawing room for a little chat and tries to explain that she's only trying to do what's best for him. And because of his worrying behavior and all the nightmares and the painting and his weird fixation with it and his weird visions of disembodied floating heads growing bigger in the night, she is reasonably concerned. He thinks that this means she wants to send Laura away, and Liz is like, "Well, honestly, yeah, but only for a while. She can come back later." And he's arguing and pleading, and he insists that she hates Laura, and she denies this. David gets mad and tells Liz that he doesn't love her and that she's mean and he hates her. And he storms out, and Liz looks stricken, but surely this is not her first time to this particular rodeo.
Right.
As dramatic as Carolyn is, I'm sure she had this fight 3 times a day for 10 years.
I imagine so.
She paces the drawing room as thunder cracks in the background, and she sits down again. In the cottage, we join Burke and Laura mid argument, and he's come to demand an explanation, and she also wants an explanation.
Yeah, she's
Sh-
like, "You trusted me fine the other day, and suddenly you don't trust me."
He wants to know what side she's on, his or Roger's, and she begins to cry and tries to send him away. And he's like, "Aw, don't cry." But she can't help it because she's just so sad that he doesn't trust her because she thought they were gonna get married and live happily ever after. But how can they do that if he doesn't trust her?
Yeah, but she says something like, she talks about how they said that they would maybe be together one day, someday again, and Burke jumps at this and is like, "Do you mean it someday, really?" And I feel for Burke in that moment. And she says, "No, not if you don't trust me." And well, he's like, "I trust you now. I've been hypnotized. I'm yours again."
She's
And
not even hypnotizing him, he's just dumb.
yeah, true. Well, it's easier to blame astrology. Burke would be there listening about his twin flames if he had an Instagram. Twin flames.
Oh, okay,
Bird
yeah,
lady.
yeah. Back in the drawing room, Liz has gathered her resolve and stands, marching deliberately to get her coat and head out into the storm. In the cottage, Laura is explaining to Burke that she was just going along with Roger because she has to get custody, and Burke was easily convinced by her crocodile tears, so that was easy enough on her part. She didn't even have to use bird magic. He calls her beautiful and pulls her in for a kiss, which she resists a little bit at first, but then goes for it, just in time for Liz to bust in and shout
Laura.
and
Just
look
like that.
furious. And
The face she made was pretty great.
Laura is shocked, and Liz says no explanations are necessary. And Laura tells Burke he probably ought to leave. And he's like, "Well, if you're sure." And Burke tells Liz, "I'm glad you walked in on that so things are out in the open." And Liz is like, "Yeah, I like things out in the open." And then the witch fight comes to a head. Burke has gone, and Liz says she will not have Laura teaching David to be even more of a little liar with her little secret meetings and shit. Laura denies it, but Liz tells her to leave by tomorrow at the latest. And Laura calls her bluff and is like, "Well, what are you going to do if I don't?" Liz says that she will never get David. She'll take her to court. Laura tells Liz that no power on earth can stop her from taking David. Liz asks, "The fuck does that mean?" And Laura tells her that she's about to find out, and they threaten each other a little more, but Liz eventually leaves. And of course, Laura heads right to the fireplace, but she pauses and grabs another log to add to the fire. Since this is going to be a big bird lady whammy, she needs extra wood.
Mhm.
As Liz enters the main house, she takes off her coat and heads for the drawing room, calling for Roger, but he's not around, and
And suddenly she's faint and
starts clutching at her face.
and they superimpose a bell book candle witch eyes over Liz, who is now unsteadily trying to go up the stairs, and suddenly she calls out frantically for Roger or Vicky and then falls down the stairs. We see the witch eyes again and then Liz's body laying at the bottom of the stairs. End credits.
Witch fight, Laura 1, Liz 0.
Witch fight.
Anyway, this was a fun week,
It was.
but
Yeah, I like the witch fight.
I do love Laura. It was good to see Mrs. Johnson again. She
Yeah.
hadn't been around all that much lately.
Do we ever see the caretaker again, to your knowledge?
He comes back,
Oh,
right?
good. He was fun. I did like him. He was spooky and fun, and I thought he and Vicky were friends. And
He is very funny. He is the embodiment of the guy that tells you in the story, oh, so and so died 25 years ago. He's very cute and fun. I like that old man. Follow us on Instagram at Ghosts Want You Dead. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/ghosts want you dead for bonus episodes and other stuff which you can find out about at patreon.com/ghosts want you dead. We're going to record next or this month's bonus episodes on Monday.
they are.
So, uh,
Get ready.
Marilyn Ross, Dark Shadows #2, Victoria Winters for book club, available as an audiobook from Hoopla or Audible if you don't have
Nasty.
Hoopla, like Becca, who is nasty. Not anymore.
No.
I have cleansed her by giving her my credentials to log into Hoopla.
Well, this is just a whole like ADHD snowball hill situation because, oh, and you know what has happened now as I can't get into my regular Libby. So I can't get into my regular library app now just for my regular audiobooks and things or regular books because I was trying to get into it and sign up for Hoopla and somehow it logged me out and now they're like, "Oh, well you have to do something." And now I have to just go to the library and figure out why.
You
Uh,
can email them. They're
yeah.
very helpful via email.
But anyway, book club is fun and you should join and read along with us and tell us what you think. Interaction is great. If you're enjoying the podcast, you should let us know through comments
Ideally,
or
via a 5-star review
that would
on
also be dope.
the podcast app of your choice.
That would be nice. We would like it.
I suppose this can go here since I talked about my shitty, floody apartment.
Mhm.
We are moving.
Hooray!
Whee! So it should not disrupt the podcast schedule, but we are going to begin moving on May 1st. And then my husband and I are taking a little trip the second week of May. I will be rather occupied moving from May 1st to say May 4th. And then on May 5th, I will be out of town until May 9th. And we will have to record on a Saturday, but we're recording on a Saturday now.
It's true.
Because Becca didn't want to play with me last night.
I didn't. I was real tired.
I am tired of having these headphones on.
Okay.
I'm going to hang up now.
I'm going to hang up now too. Goodbye.